Your mind is a magnet, and whether you realize it or not, it's always pulling something into your life. Now, here's the thing, it doesn't pull based on your wishes. It doesn't pull based on your intentions. It pulls based on your focus. What you look at long enough starts looking back at you. What you focus on consistently, intently, and emotionally starts moving toward you. It's not some mystical idea, it's spiritual law. It's how God wired the universe. God gave us eyes, not just to see the world around us, but to direct our energy, our faith, our expectation, and our attention. Have you ever noticed that when you're thinking about buying a certain car, you start seeing it everywhere? You didn't summon the car into existence. It was already there, you just weren't tuned into it. But the moment your focus shifted, so did your awareness. That's how life works. Focus activates frequency. And the frequency you operate on determines the favor or the frustration you attract. Let me take you back to the word. Peter is in the boat. Jesus says, "Come." Peter steps out on the water and he starts walking. Now stop right there. This man is doing the impossible. He's walking on what should have drowned him. Why? Because his focus was locked in on Jesus. But the very moment he shifted his focus to the storm, to the wind, to the waves, he began to sink. Not because Jesus moved, not because the water changed, but because his focus did. That's how powerful your focus is. It can make you walk on water, or it can make you drown in doubt. You don't have to change your situation to change your outcome. You just need to change your focus. Now, here's what I want you to understand every single day. Your focus is voting. It's casting a ballot for what you want more of in your life. If you focus on fear, you get more things to be afraid of. If you focus on lack, you'll see more lack. If you focus on what's missing, you'll never appreciate what's already there. But if you start focusing on abundance, on purpose, on promise, you'll start attracting doors, ideas, resources, people, and opportunities that align with that mindset. See, the problem is not always the environment. The problem is your lens. Because when your lens is focused on the wrong thing, it doesn't matter what shows up, you'll misinterpret it. God can send you a blessing and you'll call it a burden because your focus is off. He can give you an opportunity and you'll treat it like an obligation. He can put greatness inside of you and you'll still see yourself as grasshopper because your attention is stuck on your past instead of your promise. Let me tell you something, focus is not just about what you look at, it's about how long you look at it. Some people visit greatness, others live there. Some glance at purpose, others stare it down until it becomes real. You can't just casually glance at your future and expect it to materialize. You've got to lock in. You've got to get obsessed. You've got to focus with such intensity that everything that doesn't match your calling starts falling off naturally. And let me say this, your focus doesn't just affect you. It impacts everyone connected to you. When a father focuses on his legacy, the whole family benefits. When a mother focuses on purpose, the children are elevated. When a leader focuses on vision, the people under that vision flourish. This isn't just about you getting what you want. This is about you attracting what God wants for you so his glory can be revealed through your life. I need you to stop letting distractions dictate your destiny. Stop giving more screen time to your problems than your promises. Stop focusing on what the enemy is doing and start focusing on what God already did. He said, you are more than a conqueror. He said, you are the head and not the tail. He said, no weapon formed against you shall prosper. But if you keep focusing on the weapon, you'll never activate the promise that says it won't prosper. Your life is always moving in the direction of your dominant focus. So if you don't like what's showing up, ask yourself, what have I been looking at? Because your focus is your faith with legs on it. It's not enough to believe, you've got to look at it until it becomes your reality. You're not waiting on a miracle. Your miracle is waiting on your focus. You don't attract what you want, you attract what you're focused on. That's the truth a lot of people don't want to hear because it puts the responsibility back in their hands. Wanting something is easy. Anybody can want to be rich. Anybody can want to have peace, want to have impact, want to walk in purpose. But your life doesn't move based on what you want. It moves based on where you place your attention. Focus is the seed, wanting is just the wish. See, you can't keep saying you want abundance while your focus is stuck on lack. You can't keep saying you want to be successful when your eyes are glued to your failures. If your thoughts are dominated by what's not working, what went wrong, who hurt you, or what you don't have, you're going to continue to attract situations that validate that story. Because your focus becomes your filter, you'll start ignoring every open door and obsessing over the ones that closed. You'll overlook the favor in your life because you're still staring at the fear in your mind. Now listen, your brain is wired to respond to your focus. Whatever you consistently give attention to, your mind starts to interpret as important. And once your mind believes it's important, it starts filtering your reality to show you more of it. So if you're constantly focused on debt, your brain will highlight every financial setback. If you're focused on betrayal, your brain will magnify every little disappointment and call it another heartbreak. But if you shift your focus to opportunity, your mind will start seeing ways to grow, to build, to create, to multiply. And before long, you're not just seeing different, you're living different. People say, I just want to be happy. But they're focused on everything that makes them miserable. They say, I want a better relationship, but they're focused on every flaw their partner has. They say, I want to be disciplined, but they keep focusing on how hard it is, how tired they are, how far they've got to go. That's the trap, because whatever you feed with your focus, you fuel with your faith. The enemy doesn't need to take your dreams, he just needs to hijack your focus. If he can get you focusing on distractions, detours, and delays, he knows your destiny will sit in neutral. Because focus is what puts your faith in motion. It's what turns ideas into action and dreams into demonstration. And if you don't learn to focus on what you do want, you will always attract what you don't want. There's a difference between desire and direction. Desire says, I hope it happens. Direction says, I'm headed toward it. One is emotional, the other is intentional. One makes you feel good for a moment, the other moves you forward for a lifetime. And the bridge between desire and direction is your focus. That's what gets you in alignment with what you say you believe. Because belief without focus is like having a map, but never choosing a destination. Let me make this real for you. If you're driving somewhere and you keep staring in the rearview mirror, you're going to crash. That's how a lot of people live. They say they want to move forward, but their focus is still locked on the past. What happened? Who left? What failed? What didn't work? You can't step into what's next while you're focused on what was. If you want to shift your life, shift your lens. Change what you're looking at. Because whatever you keep before your eyes will soon show up in your hands. God never said you'd attract what you hope for. He said you reap what you sow. And your focus is a form of sowing. If you sow focus into your vision, you'll reap direction. If you sow focus into your faith, you'll reap power. But if you keep sowing focus into your fears, your doubts, your limitations, you'll keep attracting more of the very thing you say you don't want. That's not punishment, that's principle. So the question is, what are you consistently focused on? When you wake up in the morning, is your mind filled with gratitude and vision or anxiety and regret? When you look at your bank account, do you focus on how little you have or how much you're called to steward? When you look at your life, do you see all the gaps or do you see the grace? You don't get what you want, you get what you're willing to focus on. Whatever you magnify will multiply. That's the principle. That's how the kingdom operates. You can't give your focus to something day after day and expect it to stay the same. It will grow. It will take up more space in your mind, more power in your decisions, and more influence in your life. So the real question is not what do you want to multiply? The real question is what have you been magnifying? If you keep magnifying the problem is going to expand. If you keep talking about how hard it is, how unfair it is, how long it's taking, that challenge is going to look bigger and bigger until you start believing you can't overcome it. But if you shift your focus, if you start magnifying the promise instead of the problem, the breakthrough instead of the burden, the blessing instead of the barrier, start multiplying a different kind of outcome. It's the same thing David did when he stood in front of Goliath. The whole army saw a giant and magnified the threat. But David saw an opportunity and magnified the God who delivered him from the lion and the bear. He multiplied faith when everyone else was multiplying fear. Why? Because he was focused on the size of his God, not the size of the problem. You see, fear and faith both follow the same formula. They are both fed by focus. Fear grows when you focus on the worst case scenario. Faith grows when you focus on the God who never fails. You choose which one multiplies. You choose what fills your atmosphere. Because whatever you put your attention on will eventually demand your belief. It becomes your meditation. It becomes your language. It becomes your expectation. And that's why some people live in a cycle of frustration, because they keep magnifying what's missing. They're focused on what they don't have, what they didn't get, how long it's taking, who didn't support them, and why it's harder for them than it is for everyone else. And then they wonder why joy doesn't multiply, why peace doesn't increase, why resources stay scarce. Because you can't multiply something you won't magnify. You can't keep talking down your own destiny and expect heaven to agree with it. God responds to focus. That's why praise is so powerful. Praise is focus in action. It's not noise, it's vision alignment. When you praise, you're saying, God, I'm not going to stare at the storm. I'm going to stare at your strength. You're saying, I might be in a tight spot, but I'm choosing to magnify the solution, not the situation. And when you do that, something begins to shift, not because the problem disappeared, but because your perspective elevated. And your perspective is what gives your faith room to work. Let me break it down like this. Imagine you've got a magnifying glass. You can take that magnifying glass and hold it over an ant and make the ant look like a monster. Or you can take that same magnifying glass and hold it up to the word of God and let that promise get bigger in your mind than the bill, bigger than the betrayal, bigger than the battle you're facing. The power isn't in the problem. The power is in what you choose to magnify. Some people say, I don't know why everything always goes wrong for me. But then you listen to their conversations and all they talk about is what's wrong. They rehearse it. They relive it. They replay it in their mind like a highlight reel. Of course, it's multiplying. You're watering it with your words. You're fertilizing it with your focus. But here's the good news. You can change what you're multiplying starting today. You don't have to wait for circumstances to change. You just have to change what you're looking at. You've got to make a decision. I'm done magnifying my mistakes. I'm done magnifying my insecurities. I'm done magnifying my limitations. From this point forward, I'm going to magnify the promise. I'm going to magnify the vision. I'm going to magnify the God who's already gone before me and made a way. The moment you start doing that, you create space for multiplication. And I'm not talking about addition. I'm talking about supernatural acceleration, because God doesn't add, he multiplies. But he multiplies what you're willing to focus on in faith. So if you want to multiply peace, magnify peace. If you want to multiply wealth, magnify stewardship. If you want to multiply impact, magnify obedience. Stop staring at what's not working and start feeding what is, because whatever you magnify will multiply. Hell doesn't have to destroy you, it just has to distract you. The enemy doesn't always show up with horns and fire. Sometimes he shows up with a notification. Sometimes he shows up in the form of comparison. Sometimes it's a good opportunity that wasn't a God opportunity, because destruction is loud, but distraction is subtle. And if you're not careful, you'll start drifting off course, not because you chose the wrong destination, but because you got caught staring at the wrong thing. Distraction is one of the most effective weapons hell has. Why? Because distraction delays destiny. If the enemy can't take your calling, he'll try to steal your focus. He'll put just enough noise around you to keep your mind busy, your emotions tired, and your spirit numb. You're not sinning, but you're not progressing either. You're not doing anything wrong, but you're also not doing anything right. You're just distracted. And here's the dangerous thing about distraction. It often looks like progress. You can be moving fast in the wrong direction. You can be busy and still barren. You can be working hard and still walking in circles, because activity is not the same as assignment. Just because something is urgent doesn't mean it's important. And just because it's in front of you doesn't mean it's from God. The enemy will let you chase goals as long as they aren't tied to purpose. He'll let you get money, fame, applause. He just doesn't want you to walk in power. He doesn't want you focused on kingdom work. He doesn't want you tuned into God's voice, because he knows the moment you start operating in divine direction, he can't stop what's coming. So instead of attacking you directly, he'll just keep throwing distractions in your path, anything to break your focus. Remember, when Nehemiah was rebuilding the wall, his enemies didn't show up to fight him at first. They just tried to call him down from the wall. They sent message after message, come meet with us. And Nehemiah said, I'm doing a great work and I cannot come down. That's the posture you need when distractions come calling. You need to learn how to say, I'm doing a great work and I will not come down. I'm not coming down to argue. I'm not coming down to explain myself. I'm not coming down to chase every opinion or defend every decision. I've got direction and I'm not letting distraction derail it. You've got to understand purpose requires priority. It demands discipline. It means saying no to good things so you can say yes to God things. It means recognizing when the enemy is trying to use entertainment to dull your edge, when he's trying to use people to pull you into gossip and drama, when he's trying to use busyness to bury your brilliance. Because the truth is, the enemy doesn't have to break you if he can just blur your vision. A blurred vision leads to blurred decisions, and blurred decisions lead to broken destiny. Look around. This generation is full of people who are gifted but distracted, called but confused, anointed but inconsistent. Not because they don't have access to truth, but because they've been feeding on distraction more than direction. They've been letting social media set their mindset, letting culture dictate their worth, letting fear interrupt their faith. And every single time you take your eyes off what God told you to build, you're giving distraction permission to delay your destiny. God doesn't operate in confusion. He operates in clarity. And clarity comes from focus. That's why the word says, set your mind on things above. Not scroll your mind, not scatter your mind, not borrow your mind from what everyone else is doing. Set it, fix it, anchor it in truth. Because when your mind is set, your life follows. Some of you have been wondering why things feel stuck. It's not because you lack desire, it's because you've lost direction. Your energy's scattered. Your goals are everywhere. You're planting seeds in 10 different fields and frustrated that nothing's growing. But you can't multiply if you won't focus. You can't build if you won't block out the noise. This is the season to shut down distractions and follow divine direction, to stop asking for a miracle and start protecting your momentum. Because God already gave you what you need. Now it's on you to stay focused long enough to finish. Distraction is not just a delay tactic, it's a destiny killer. Energy flows where attention goes. That's not just a phrase, that's a law. And most people are wasting their energy not because they don't have enough, but because they're sending it in too many directions at once. Scattered attention creates scattered results. And when your attention is scattered, your power is diluted. You can't produce something consistent with a chaotic mind. You can't attract results when your energy is leaking through every distraction, every fear, every insecurity you refuse to take captive. Every time you give your attention to something, you're investing your energy. The question is, are you getting a return? If you keep pouring your attention into problems that don't matter, into people who don't care, into conversations that don't change anything, into platforms that don't build you, don't be surprised when your energy is depleted and your progress is paralyzed. Focus is a form of faith, and where your attention goes, your energy grows. God didn't wire you to run on empty. He gave you energy for purpose, not for pettiness. He gave you energy to build legacy, not to chase likes. But if your attention is being pulled in every direction, don't expect your life to move in the right one. Attention is directional, it doesn't just sit still. It either aligns you or distracts you. It either activates your power or drains your potential. Let me ask you something real. What are you fueling with your attention right now? Because you can't say you want to walk in purpose and then keep giving all your energy to people pleasing. You can't say you want clarity and then keep giving your attention to confusion. You can't say you want momentum and then spend half your day focused on things that don't move you an inch closer to your goals. You've got to protect your attention like your future depends on it, because it does. The enemy doesn't need to destroy your gifts, he just needs to keep your attention off your assignment. That's why distractions are so dangerous. They don't always look evil. Sometimes they look entertaining. Sometimes they look urgent. Sometimes they look like something you have to do. But if it doesn't align with your purpose, it's draining your power. And every moment you spend focused on the wrong thing is a moment your destiny is put on pause. Your energy is sacred. And if you don't direct it intentionally, it will be directed for you by algorithms, by agendas, by other people's expectations, by the loudest voice in the room. But when you start mastering your attention, you start mastering your life. You stop reacting to everything and start responding to purpose. You stop being pulled and start being planted. And let me be clear, this isn't about hustle. It's about alignment. Because when your attention is locked in on what God called you to do, you don't need to force results. You attract them. You're not chasing opportunities, they're finding you. You're not begging for favor flows where focus goes. That's why some people seem to always be in the right place at the right time. It's not luck. It's alignment. They've trained their attention to dwell where their assignment lies. And energy follows. But when your attention is split, your life feels stuck. You're exhausted but unproductive. Busy but ineffective. And it's not because you're broken, it's because you're distracted. You're giving away pieces of your power to things that don't deserve your presence. You're answering questions God never asked you to answer, fighting battles He never told you to fight, engaging in cycles that only leave you tired and empty. It's time to take your attention back. Time to stop apologizing for choosing purpose over popularity. Time to stop letting temporary emotions steal permanent energy. Time to stop letting circumstances choose your focus. Because what you focus on doesn't just affect what you attract, it affects how you show up, what you're able to sustain, and how long you can last. You were never designed to burn out, you were designed to burn bright. But that light only stays strong when you keep your attention fixed on the source, not the shadows. When your focus is on faith, not fear. When your attention is on vision, not validation. When your energy is aligned with your calling, not leaking into distractions. So wherever you want to grow, send your attention there. Because energy flows where attention goes. Your focus is your future in seed form. That's what people miss. They think the future is something that just happens to them. They think it's somewhere out there waiting for the right time or the right opportunity to finally show up. But the truth is, your future is already showing up every day in what you choose to focus on. Your focus is the preview of your becoming. You can't focus on failure and expect to produce success. You can't keep your eyes on fear and expect to walk in faith. What you stare at the longest becomes your strongest. That's how the future is formed, not in one big moment, but in the daily decisions of attention. Every breakthrough you're praying for starts with focus. Every transformation you're believing for begins with what you're choosing to look at, think about, meditate on, and invest your energy in. Focus is not just about concentration, it's about alignment. It's about choosing what matters most and tuning out what doesn't. And the more you align your focus with your purpose, the more you start stepping into your future before it even fully arrives. But here's the thing, your future can't be bigger than your focus. You don't rise to the level of your intentions, you rise to the level of your attention. You can say all the right things. You can speak affirmations every morning. You can declare abundance, favor, and blessing. But if your focus is still wrapped up in doubt, scarcity, negativity, and excuses, you're not going to walk into the future you were designed for. Because your focus sets the foundation. It's what your future gets built on. Most people don't fail because of a lack of opportunity. They fail because of a lack of focus. They start strong but lose sight. They get excited about the vision, but they never discipline their attention. And when your attention is undisciplined, your potential stays untapped. You can't produce a focused outcome with a distracted mind. You can't expect a fruitful harvest if you're planting seeds in 10 different fields and never tending to any of them. Your future is calling you, but it can't compete with the noise you're entertaining. You've got to decide what's worth your gaze, because whatever holds your gaze holds your growth. If you keep looking at your past, your future won't have room to show up. If you keep focusing on who hurt you, what you lost, and how long it's been, you won't recognize the doors God is opening right now. He's not waiting on a better moment, he's waiting on a better focus. Look at the story of Peter walking on water. He was doing something supernatural, not because he was perfect, but because his focus was on Jesus. As long as his eyes were locked in, he was doing the impossible. But the moment he started focusing on the storm, the waves, the wind, the noise, he sank. Same person, same water, same power, different focus. That's what happens to most people. They start stepping into something great, and then they shift their focus. And when your focus shifts, your future follows. Focus is what gives faith a landing strip. It tells heaven where to send the blessing. It says, I'm ready to receive, I'm ready to act, I'm ready to build. And if you can stay focused through distractions, through discouragement, through delay, you won't just attract your future, you'll create it. You'll manifest what was once invisible because your focus never wavered. You'll multiply what others missed because you kept your eyes on the mission. It's not about how fast you go, it's about how consistent your focus is. You don't need to have it all figured out. You just need to focus on what you know to do today. Focus on growing in your gift. Focus on becoming a better steward. Focus on the next right step, because focus compounds. It builds momentum. It turns intention into impact. You are one focused season away from a completely different life. One season of locked-in vision, disciplined attention, and undistracted obedience. You don't have to chase the future. It's already on its way to meet your focus. So guard it. Train it. Align it with your assignment. Because your focus is not just a tool, it's a prophetic instruction to your future. And your future will always follow your focus.